Since 17-year-old Sarah Kolb is charged with murder, prosecutors will try to prove that she devised a plan to kill Adrianne Reynolds and then methodically carried out that premeditated plan. And even if it can't be proved that Kolb pre-planned the brutal slaying, prosecutors can try to convince the jury she attacked Reynolds unprovoked and with the specific intent to kill her. Kolb has never publicly admitted having anything to do with Reynolds' murder, so a flat-out denial could be her defense. Her attorneys will also likely portray Kolb as a sort of victim herself, a victim of family circumstances, peer pressure, and other hardships life has thrown her way. Another strategy the defense may use is shifting blame to Corey Gregory. He too is charged in the murder and will stand trial in February.
Tonight, 900 miles away in Kilgore, Texas, grandfather Gary Gibson looks back on a very painful 9 months.
I think everyone's sort of in shock right at first, and it still seems like a dream.
He says the family's been living a nightmare since his granddaughter Adrianne's death. First, the news of her gruesome murder, a story so disturbing it made national headlines.
It doesn't really seem real.
Then two very emotional services, one here in the Quad Cities, the other in Texas. Her family treasures these belongings, from the teddy bear Adrianne slept with each night to photographs of her as a child and a young woman.
We've looked through old pictures quite a bit over the last close to a year.
Gibson says this picture's special. He was there the day it was taken, her 16th birthday.
I see her sister, my other granddaughter, quite a bit, and every time I see her, it's hard not to remember.
Meanwhile, here in East Moline, the Reynolds built a memorial in their front yard. The theme of everything is always pink, Adrianne's favorite color.
It's hard to believe any of this happened, and I'm sure all of us miss Adrianne immensely.
Gibson says he'll keep close tabs on the news the next few weeks, following Sarah Kolb's trial from Texas.
Some people like to be lenient because of age, and I hope that's not the case.
Friends of Adrianne Reynolds led police to suspect Corey Gregory, who then led police to Reynolds' dismembered remains buried here at Black Hawk State Park. From there, investigators obtained a search warrant for Sarah Kolb's car, where they found a gas can, 2 saws, and a black leather belt. All are items investigators say were used to strangle Reynolds and then burn, dismember, and dispose of her body. Also a key piece of evidence for the prosecution, this note from Reynolds to Kolb, dated just 3 days before her disappearance. It reads, "Why do you hate me so much? And why do you want me to die?" To further bolster their case, prosecutors will likely call to the stand students from Black Hawk Outreach Center. Some have already publicly stated that the tension between Kolb and Reynolds was no secret.
They just had some problems over some boys, and Sarah was a little upset.
She had mentioned to some people that she was going to kill her, wasn't she? Mm-hmm. She's like, I don't care.
Yeah, she said she wasn't. She told people that she wasn't afraid to kill her, that she would do it, and she's not scared.
But the most damning evidence against Kolb may be the testimony of Corey Gregory and this teenager whose name is being withheld because he was charged as a minor. He pled guilty to helping dispose of Reynolds' body. In addition, police say Gregory told them he saw Kolb kill Reynolds, and then she threatened to kill him if he ever told anyone.
Say something that's important.
Defense attorney David Hoffman and his co-counsel had nothing to say as they left the courthouse today. On the other hand, prosecutor Jeff Taranis was willing to comment on the jury selection process, saying he was pleased they were able to find 15 impartial people in just 2 days.
Well, what makes it hard in terms of the publicity is finding people that are willing to keep an open mind. We've done that at this point. I think that they are bound by what they've said. I think they will keep an open mind. I think they'll be fair. I think they'll be reasonable. I think the process will take its course at this point.
Today in court, Sarah Kolb was very involved in the process, conferring with her attorney on each potential juror before he accepted their appointment. After the jury was impaneled, Judge James Terrace swore the men and then ordered them to avoid discussing the case with anyone and to refrain from watching or reading media reports. Prosecutor Jeff Taranis told jurors he intends to prove that after Sarah Kolb struck and strangled Adrianne Reynolds, she and schoolmate Corey Gregory took Reynolds' body to Mercer County, where they burned her remains for hours. He says she was burned so severely her legs fell off. Taranis says a few days later, Nate Gaudette showed up with a saw, which he used to cut off Reynolds' hands and arms. He then allegedly sawed her torso in half. According to Taranes, Reynolds' arms and head were put in a trunk of Kolb's car, where they remained while the teen stopped at McDonald's for lunch. To drive home the gruesome nature of the crime, Taranes told jurors that to this day, one of Reynolds' legs still hasn't been found. Today, we also heard from Sarah Kolb when Officer Kevin Johnson of the East Moline Police Department took the stand. During his testimony, he played a taped interview with Kolb, recorded the day after Reynolds was last seen alive. In the recording, Kolb admits fighting with Reynolds the previous day. She said, quote, "I'll be honest with you, I hit her and then she hit me back." She says afterwards she and Corey Gregory dropped Reynolds off at a McDonald's restaurant and then never saw her again. But when Officer Johnson told her Corey Gregory told him a different story, she responded by saying, quote, "I told him not to say anything about the fight because I didn't want him to be a part of it because he was not." Family members of Sarah Kolb attended today's proceedings, as did the family of Adrianne Reynolds, but neither had anything to say about the case or the admitted tensions between Kolb and Reynolds in the days preceding Reynolds' murder. But on the witness stand, schoolmate Cassie Van Voren testified that after Reynolds had sexual intercourse with one of Kolb's friends sometime in December, Kolb no longer wanted to be her friend, calling Reynolds a slut and a whore in the hallway at school. Schoolmate Sarah Harrell took the stand to back up Van Voren's story. Prosecutor Jeff Taranes also elicited testimony from a schoolmate that Adrianne Reynolds was sexually attracted to both men and women. That testimony was reinforced when a sergeant from the East Moline Police Department took the stand. He said during an interview with Kolb admitted that she and Reynolds had exchanged, quote, love letters, but he wasn't clear on who was pursuing whom.
Family members of Sarah Kolb were called to the stand for the prosecution today. Kolb's aunt, Della Smolt, testified that when she saw her niece the day of the murder, she had a fresh, bloody scratch on her face. She said when she asked Sarah how she got it, Sarah told her that she and Corey Gregory were wrestling and Corey did it. But Smolt said she looked at Gregory's fingernails and noticed they were short. Kolb's grandmother, Mary Engel, testified that Kolb and Gregory came to see her in Aledo on the day of the murder and described her granddaughter as quiet, antsy, and fidgety. And her grandfather, Brian Engel, testified that on the day of the murder, he chased a suspicious car off his farm in Millersburg in the dark that night, a car that he later found out was Sarah's, right near the site where Adrianne Reynolds' body was burned and dismembered. She told her grandfather that she was just showing the farm to Corey. Earlier, a Quad City couple testified they saw a car in the Taco Bell parking lot the day of the murder that was really rocking back and forth. They say they suspected a fight was underway and identified Sarah Kolb today in court as the girl in the front passenger seat of that car. "16-year-old Nate Gaudette smiled while being led back to juvenile jail after his 3-hour testimony today. His hair short, back to its natural brown." Nate, you want to say anything?
You can.
Looking far different from the black-haired teen arrested earlier this year. Today on the stand, he calmly and methodically told the jury that Sarah Kolb was the ringleader, the boss, and said both she and Corey Gregory confessed that they killed Adrianne Reynolds, that Kolb told him Gregory held her arms while she strangled her to death in the Taco Bell parking lot. He then described how they drove him to Kolb's grandfather's farm outside Aledo to cut her body into pieces to try and cover up the crime. He told the jury that Kolb and Gregory watched as he first cut off her head, then the arms, legs, and torso, and said it was Kolb's idea to bury the head and arms to get rid of dental records and fingerprints. Never flinching on the stand, he told the jury that after the dismemberment, en route to bury Adrianne's head and arms, they made one stop at the Aledo McDonald's to grab a bite to eat. Sarah Kolb was on the witness stand here for about 2.5 hours and denied any part in killing Adrianne Reynolds and placed all the blame on Corey Gregory. Kolb admitted that at the time of the murder she didn't like Adrianne at all and was really angry at her for trying to steal her boyfriend. but says she never laid a hand on Adrianne except for grabbing her hair. She told the jury over and over that Gregory was the one who strangled Adrianne in the back seat of Kolb's car. She said she lied to police and went along with it because Gregory threatened to kill her and her family, and she says she was afraid for her life. She testified she was an unwilling participant in the murder cover-up, even called herself a victim and not the mastermind. In her first few minutes on the stand, Kolb today admitted that she was bisexual and said initially she was very attracted to Adrianne because she was so pretty and had explored the possibility of a relationship with her, but said her feelings were hurt and she got very angry because Adrianne was sleeping with other people when she should have been loyal to her. In Rock Island, Chris Miner, News Channel 8. Sarah Kolb's family said nothing as they left the courtroom today, while the family of Adrianne Reynolds tried to grasp the news of a mistrial.
Just can't believe it. I just can't believe it. I don't know what else to say.
Do you think it could have been done, anything could have been done differently?
No. Torontis did a good job. Just one juror, I guess.
After 15 long hours and 2 days of deliberations, Judge Jim Terrace declared the mistrial. A juror says 11 members of the jury wanted to find Kolb guilty of first-degree murder, but one lone holdout, the jury foreman himself, would not. What was his reasoning for not?
He had many reasoning. I mean, we tried to convince him that it just wasn't going to happen.
It was one juror. Right. What would you say to that juror? This makes me sick.
Reynolds family members, though, say Kolb is a killer, and they're ready for round 2.
We're going to be there, and we're going to be ready to fight. We haven't given up hope. They're not saying that she's innocent. They're just that one juror, so we're not quitters, we're fighters.
Do you think justice was served today?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Prosecutor Jeff Taranis called nearly 30 witnesses to the stand. Still, their testimony wasn't enough to convict accused murderer Sarah Kolb.
It's disappointing that we can get so close that 11 out of 12 can say that there's proof beyond a reasonable doubt. But by the same token, that's the system of justice. So.
As far as what he'll do differently for Kolb's second trial, Taranis says he doesn't plan to change a thing.
An 11-to-1 scenario, I'd be hard-pressed to change anything at this point. And I'm aware of the issue that was under consideration, and I just think the person that held out got it wrong.
No, it's not a victory. It's a nothing. There is no conclusion. How can that be a victory?
Many courtroom spectators were very surprised prosecutors didn't make a deal with Corey Gregory, the other teen charged with Adrianne Reynolds' murder. A deal would mean Gregory would take the stand against Kolb, further bolstering the case against her. Do you feel pressure to put Corey Gregory on the stand this time?
No, not at all. I feel strong. I feel strong still at this point. We get our witnesses together. Our exhibits speak for themselves with the witnesses that we have. They continue to cooperate with us. We'll go after it again, no doubt about it.
There were several jurors in the room who would have been glad to agree to this being tried on a gut feeling. I think some of the jurors came in and said, I believe she did it. Am I the lone person? I don't know. Am I the lone person who followed the instructions of the judge to the extent that I presumed innocence and asked that the state prove beyond a reasonable doubt and found that the state didn't prove that? Possibly so. Of course, my heart breaks for the family who's lost a child. And I certainly hope that they can find peace in their hearts at some point in the resolution of this case. It's beyond a reasonable doubt.
Juror Mark Hurdy says reaction from the court of public opinion stings a little bit today, but says what he heard in court did not prove Sarah Kolb was guilty.
I think there was a story on the table an alternate story on the table that, based on what the state presented as evidence, couldn't be totally refuted, which was that Corey Gregory pulled Adrianne Reynolds into the back seat of the car and killed her.
The Moline computer designer says some fellow jurors did not keep an open mind about Kolb.
I think several of the jurors came into the deliberations believing that Sarah Kolb was guilty and not offering her the presumption of innocence that we were instructed to offer.
Fellow jurors say Hurdy, the jury foreman, was the lone holdout on a guilty verdict.
He had many reasoning. I mean, we tried to convince him that just wasn't going to happen.
But Hurdy says he doesn't know for sure if that's true.
But we never voted as to what the outcome would be.
State's Attorney Jeff Taranis said he believed the evidence and testimony spoke for themselves, but Hurdy says not in his mind.
I just think the person that held out got it wrong.
My heart breaks for the family who's lost a child, and I certainly hope that they can find peace in their hearts at some point in the resolution of this case, but I disagree with Mr. Taranis that he proved the case beyond a reasonable doubt. He seems to believe that I misunderstood or I got it wrong. Two adults can disagree about that.